And we are live. Welcome to NBA Live Before Lock. It is Thursday, June 24th. I had no idea what the date was. I had to look. I am Josh Engleman. I'm joined by Rinpak, and you guys are lucky to have me back. You don't have everybody else trying to run this show like it's not me. I'm here. It's going to be good again. Don't worry. We're back. We're back to normal. No worries at all. And shout out to PrizePicks for being the presenting sponsor of this show. Ryan, how are you?
I'm doing well. Entering the show as an Hawks apologist. I mean, I said I was just fingers crossed Trae Young doesn't put up a 50-point double-double yesterday. And what he does goes on and puts a 48-point double-double. So I guess I covered my grounds, but kudos to the Nate McMillan, the Hawks. Really kind of shocking the world, stealing game one on the road. Man, they're just playing like some backyard dogs out there. I mean, throwing the ball off the backboard, Collins is flushing everything, nailing threes. It's their world, and we're just living in it, it seems like, in the NBA. But excited to talk about game 3. Chris Paul returning from the Rona back at the Staples Center. Should be a lot of fun.
You don't see the angled oop off the backboard all that frequently, which made that even more just absolutely disgusting. They went back down really quickly, and then like finally once the ball went out of bounds, Trey got to dap up Collins, but that was legitimately sick. So, and
it was like, was it in the second quarter or third quarter? I forget. It was not like the game was like out of reach or anything. It was like a pivotal possession, and then let's just try this.
I saw it this morning. I was asleep before that game even tipped off yesterday. Long one yesterday. So I caught it. I caught what I could earlier today. Before we kick it off, D. Owens with the super chat, and I'm just going to hit you with it now. Let's see here. I just want to make sure that I have my data in front of me. All right, perfect. So he says, Reggie Jackson captain, would you rather have Ayton and Morris or Booker and Cam Johnson?
So he's still okay running. So I guess Reggie Jackson is your captain, and he's thinking of running Ayton Morris or Booker and Cam Johnson.
Yeah.
So Ayton being in the picture, I'm going to go with the Ayton Morris side of things. It's very close, but I think Ayton Morris, I just think the return of Chris Paul, Devin Booker's ceiling is a bit more limited, not much more ball handling duty like we saw in game 1. Let's see how he's returning from a busted up nose job that he got from Pat Beverly in game 2. So I'm going to go with the Ayton side of things, but it's very close.
I'm on the same page with you. I think that for the Clippers to win this series, we're going to have to see a little bit more of Marcus Morris. I don't know if his knee is going to be able to hold up for that, but if it can, I think we see those minutes climb today, at which point I like the Ayton Morris side a little bit better. So we're going to hop through FanDuel to start, then work our way over to DraftKings. So I want to make sure that we give FanDuel some love. So we're going to kick it off here. Who are your favorite plays on FanDuel for tonight's single game?
So FanDuel, it's obviously a much different puzzle than DraftKings. Obviously, 2x point multiplier, no salary multipliers being in play there. But FanDuel, where you're only rostering 5 players, you have to nail the top 3 highest scoring players in order. You absolutely need to do that to even have a chance at sniffing a first place in that tournament. So it's not a hot take. Paul George, for me, leads the way. He's my favorite Clipper. And then Chris Paul is my favorite Sun. I really like Chris Paul in his return. I don't mind taking some MVP chances in CP3 returning from the Rona. I prefer him to Devin Booker. I do think maybe we get Chris Paul at a little lower ownership. Granted, Chris Paul and Booker are the same price on FanDuel. So the recency bias, I think people might be a little shying away about Chris Paul. But I'm just going to go right to him and I hope my chances he's fully good to go, and maybe there's no side effects or aftermath of COVID.
Interesting. You like Chris Paul more than Devin Booker, eh? I'm a little nervous.
Yeah, I just want to get a little different from the field. I feel like the field is going to go on the Booker side of things more than Chris Paul, but I think it's very close. Do you have a drastic difference? Is it more than a 5-6 point difference for you?
For me, it is 6.1.
Okay. That is much more significantly.
I have Devin Booker at 40 minutes. and I have Chris Paul at 34. So it's essentially a playing time thing. If Chris Paul goes out there and plays 38 to 40 minutes, then yeah, I would be with you. I would be preferring Chris Paul in this scenario. I'm a little nervous that he gets a ton of run, particularly because they are uniquely set up to just simply play campaign a little bit more and not have to throw Chris Paul back. If campaign didn't have that same sort of game in game 2, then I might be a little bit more hesitant, but I think they should at least be mildly comfortable to run out campaign for whatever he wants, because he went nuts in game 2.
Yeah, campaign. I guess West Coast Trae Young, right?
I heard that's what you called him, which was, or maybe it was vice versa. Did you call Trae Young East Coast? Yeah. Somebody mentioned it on the show earlier today. I laughed at that pretty hard. I like that a lot.
So
go ahead.
I think, those are pretty straightforward options. You can mix and match those three and get a little different, play around with their ownership projections. And we've seen we saw in game 2, Devin Booker was not in the optimal on FanDuel. Really, really shocking development there. But the guy who really was a surprise value, actually not too much of a surprise, once he was ruled a starter, I really liked him, was Ivica Zubac. And Zubac, I think, grades out to me for a great play yet again. The limitations of Marcus Morris, something I think is up with Nick Batum. You alluded to it earlier in the morning this morning. Yeah. Him coming off the bench really shocked me. He had played well enough, I thought, just to start. But I think Ty Lue and he's now the king of mid-game adjustments. The team's calling him Belichick. Zubac, I think, is going to be on the court, avoiding any foul trouble for pretty much any 8 minutes that are going to be there. Yeah. So I really like Zubac quite a bit.
That's a spot that scares me a lot. But I also agree with you. Like the way that I have him loaded up, I like Zubac more than the public. But I am very nervous that they're going to have to make a major change and that he is the guy that gets pinched in the end.
Yeah. And another thing on these FanDuel single game contests, it's not something I go out of my way to happen. It sometimes happens organically. If you have a Phoenix Sun and MVP, the spread is playing out in the way. This is the game that expects to be close. I can go with the Clipper more likely than not and start. Very rarely do if I see it like 3 Suns and MVP Pro and Star, I shy away. Is that really going to happen? Is that how the game's going to really play out? Salary is obviously a factor, but sometimes I do like to mix and match the teams on FanDuel. Sometimes it works out, sometimes it doesn't, but I don't try to really front load one team necessarily so on an NBA FanDuel single game contest.
All right. We've talked a little bit about our favorite plays for FanDuel. Now let's look at it from a different direction. Who are some of the guys that you're not as interested in comparison to the field? Who are your top fades for FanDuel for today? Anybody that stands out to you that's picking up more ownership than you would really expect? Because I've got one right out of the gate, but I'm curious to see if it's the same one as you.
One right out of the gate for me. I think it's Reggie Jackson. I'm a little bearish. The one thing about Reggie Jackson is he's going to get upwards to high 38, 39, 40 minutes. I just think Chris Paul's back in the picture, and we know Chris Paul is still an above average defender. They're not going to let Chris Paul's not going to let Reggie Jackson beat him. I like taking my chances on being under the field on Reggie Jackson.
So Reggie Jackson was not my guy, but he does play for that team and play the same position. I'm going to be a little bit lighter on Rondo than the public is right now. We've got him at around 28% ownership, including 3% at the Star, which feels damn near impossible for Rajon Rondo to be the second best scorer for today's slate. So I'm going to go ahead and skip that one completely. I don't even really like him in the pro spot either. I think the ownership that he's getting at utility is the only ownership that I think is relevant, and he's getting just too much elsewhere. So that would be the guy that I think ends up going away a little bit. And then I'm really curious to get your thoughts on this. We have Paul George projected for 100% ownership, 99.9. If you knew for a fact that he was in 100% of lineups, how much would you actually want to have? Because to me, I would want to take my chances that he drank too much coffee or rolls an ankle or something like that.
Yeah. So, Paul George last game out was fine. I outscored Devin Booker, so that was the difference. But I'm going to have quite a bit of Paul George. I don't know if I could advocate fading Paul George on a one-game slate when we've seen him just being the absolute lead dog on this team. He's going to catch a lot of heat if he doesn't show up today after missing those 2 free throws in the 0.9 seconds to go, the longest 0.9 seconds ever, pretty much, it felt like the other night. Yeah, I think the 100% is fine on Paul George. Where I don't play Paul George as much as in the utility spot. I don't touch him there. He's going to be good. He's going to be in the top 3, and I'm going to find a way to put him in the top 3. I talked about this yesterday, and that's how I like Paul George. Yeah, I think the 100% makes sense. If you're playing one lineup and you have a high risk tolerance and you fade him, I think you're fine. But that's if you want to play the high risk game on a 1-game slate, it could definitely pan out for you. If you faded Booker in game 2, you look like a genius. It worked out really well for you. So these 1-game slates can get wonky. A lot of different games can happen. So take your chances. And I'm more in line of, I think Paul George is going to show up at home. He's been good. He's still going to take mid-20 shot attempts, potentially even more. So I expect him to be a bit more aggressive today. So I like Paul George, and the 100% makes a lot of sense.
We are just shy of 1,000 viewers, and I assume by the time that I am done this little rant, it will be north of 1,000, but we only have 116 likes. This is my first ask to you guys. Please hit that like button. They make me feel good, and I need some feel goods right now. So hit that thumbs up, subscribe to the channel, hit the notification bell, all that good stuff. Is there anybody else you see when you look at the FanDuel ownership and think, wow, that's a little bit higher than I was expecting?
I'm not sure about a little bit higher than I was expecting. Guys, I think if you're not interested in Rondo and you want to look at a guy at a similar price range, not as much an upside, but I think of Torrey Craig, someone who scored 0 points. I still think he plays a rotational run. Torrey Craig is one of those guys, super boom and super bust, sometimes boom type of player. And in these 1-game slates, you want to take your chances like on a guy like him. Luke Kennard, if you like birthday narratives, in the LA nightlife, things have opened up. Take your chances with Luke Kennard at 7K. So Kennard is someone who I believe played all of the fourth quarter due to really good offensive play, held his own defensively. Obviously, he has a lot of defensive woes in his game. Maybe Kennard gets a little bit more run from Ty Lue today. And a guy who I'm not sure at all and what the rotation is going to look like is DeMarcus Cousins. That is really tough to pinpoint. Looked great in the first quarter, first rotation run in game 1. Looked terrible the following rotation. Only plays 4 minutes last game out. I mention him is he's the cheapest guy that I expect to potentially get minutes. I don't think Etuan Moore enters the rotation with Chris Paul back. So DeMarcus Cousins priced at $6,500. I only mention that because he's that price tag and no one is cheaper than him that we can. I potentially can even play minutes. So proceed with caution with Boogie Cousins. That's all I got to go with.
Yeah, I can't imagine, like I have him in for 3 minutes or 4 minutes, like basically like one small rotation somewhere to get 8 and a little bit of a blow. I can't imagine the path to success for the Clippers to get back into the series is more Boogie. So I think that, thinking that he gets a rotation and hoping he just wants to shoot on every possession is the dream scenario. And luckily it's Boogie. So he probably does want to shoot on every possession if he's in the game. And at 6,500, like you don't need a ton.
He's 6,500 there. And then where you're rostering even one more player on DraftKings, we'll talk about his price tag once we get there.
Yeah, absolutely. And on that note, seems like a good time, at least to me, to talk a little bit about our schedule for the rest of the night. And it's kind of crazy because we're obviously going late on Live Before Lock, 8 o'clock to 9 o'clock. We're not done, though. 9 p.m. Eastern time, MMA Strategy Show, Jason Floyd, Pete the Heat Rogers, breaking down this Saturday's UFC card. You don't want to miss that. It's a great show. Fun main event coming up this week, too, so you don't want to miss that. 2 heavyweight guys. They're going to stand and bang. It's going to be a good one, so you don't want to miss it. MMA Strategy Show coming up immediately after this, plus free content for you. So we got to give the people what they want. NBA projections are free for the single game, so if you're trying to play tonight, you're in luck. 45 minutes of free projections for you before we get to lock. MLB Top Pitchers Tool, also free, which I can only imagine is not all that useful at this point. I'm guessing MLB locked an hour and 15 minutes ago. I have no tie to baseball right now, but if you want to look at the Top Pitchers Tool and see what it is, we talk about it a lot. If you've never seen it before, perfect opportunity for you to navigate on over to Awesemo.com and check out the Top Pitchers Tool. And now we're going to talk a little bit about PrizePicks. That is the presenting sponsor of this show. I've got a couple prize picks for you. I want to get your thoughts on them. But first and foremost, You don't have to deal with sharks or optimizers, mass entry. All you have to do, pick 2, 3, 4, or 5 of the players that are available on PrizePicks. You just got to pick whether they're going to go over or under their projected score, whether that's NBA, MLB, WNBA, NFL, or esports. Tons of options. You can go to the PrizePicks website or download the app in the App Store, Google Play. Either way, here's the key. Use the promo code Awesemo and get an instant deposit match bonus of up to $100. That's a lot of money. You deposit $100, you get another $100. You're not going to build a bankroll faster than that. I promise you. You definitely want to check it out. I've got 2 prize picks for you. I want to know your thoughts. Are you ready?
Let's hear him.
Paul George, leader of the Clippers right now. Does he go over or under 51.5 fantasy points?
Over or under 51.5 fantasy points. I got to give some credit to PrizePicks. And now I ask this, are they more aligned with FanDuel scoring or DraftKings scoring?
I believe it's FanDuel scoring.
Okay. So I will go with the under because I have just slightly below 50 fantasy points today for Paul George. It is very close for me. I'll take slightly the under on Paul George.
I would also take the under. I have him slightly below that mark as well. Somewhere like just under 50 is where I have him. Where do you have him actually?
I have him just under 50 as well. I'll tell you exactly what I have him nailed at. I have him at 49.5.
Perfect. 49.3 for me. So great minds. And finally, the final prize pick for you. This one, I'm really curious to see where you land. Chris Paul, 41.5 fantasy points.
Wow. 41.5 is a number, but I have going to take the over on that. I just think Chris Paul will be back and hopefully all systems go. And I'll take the over. Maybe the field is a little cautious like you are on Chris Paul's return.
This would be no surprise to anybody given what I said for his minutes, but I have him quite a bit under that 41.5 number. I will say this. I think it would be really, really fun to see him go over that number. If there's anybody that I want to be super wrong on today, I won't be mad about it being Chris Paul. That'd be fun to see. Oh,
for sure. Yeah, I like Chris Paul. He's just his narrative on his career would be so different if he already has a ring. He's just one of those guys who just needs that ring to really solidify his case. He's already done everything else. That's all he needs to do.
His narrative for his career would be so different if he didn't punch that guy in the Jimmy while he was at Wake Forest.
He's done that actually a couple of times in the NBA as well. He's like Grayson Allen tripping. That's his little thing.
Yeah, he's just got to always sock people in the junk. All right, everybody. I know you've been waiting for it because nobody was waiting for that FanDuel piece, but we got to give them the love. Everybody's playing there too. DraftKings time. Now you guys can tell your friends to tune in. 1,200 of you in here, 250 likes. Things are going good. Who are your top plays on DraftKings for tonight? Let's start at the captain side, and then we can work our way into the flex spot.
It's not going to be a shocker. I've been bullish on Chris Paul all day long. It's Chris Paul for me. I'm going to Chris Paul yet again on DraftKings as well. And one thing about DraftKings, we just want to touch on overall. The constants in this series that I just feel most confident. Pardon me if you disagree with. It's Chris. Not for me. It's Chris Paul, Devin Booker, Paul George, and Reggie Jackson. Those guys, those minutes seem pretty solidified. And then the second tier of confidence for me is Mikal Bridges. And then it's now Ivica Zubac is going to enter that second tier for me. That's how I feel about his new role in this rotation. And it's DeAndre Ayton. That's like the second tier of I feel confidence. And everyone else, Ty Lue's rotation is always in such flux in these playoffs. Yeah. It is tough to pinpoint what he's going to do with guys like Marcus Morris with that injury, Batum, Kennard, Terrence Mann, Patrick Beverly, and Rondo. There are so many guys, and those are the guys who will decide the DraftKings Showdown slate. And if you can nail those three guys who are going to be good on that end for the Clippers side of things, and the guys on the Phoenix side being Jay Crowder, Cam Johnson off the bench, Dario Saric, that mixing and matching those guys is how people separate themselves in these showdown tournaments. And I guess is Chris Paul getting too different at captain? Potentially, but I just like his chances of being a good captain play over there on DraftKings, it opens up enough for me where I can get other studs in as well.
Yeah, Paul George, unequivocally the top captain option. I don't really see how you can land on anybody else, just given the fact that he doesn't have a counterpart, whereas Chris Paul, Devin Booker both do. So Paul George clearly at the top for me. And then I have Booker and Reggie Jackson as very comparable captain plays. Booker getting the same ownership that I think that he should be getting. Reggie Jackson, on the other hand, though, pretty minimal captain ownership, just 7%. I actually think it should be close to double that. So he is my favorite captain to get to in a large field GPP. I think his salary really helps to open things up. Just 7,800. He's been playing 38 minutes a game. So Reggie Jackson is actually the guy that I'm trying to look at the most on DK. I just think his salary is a little bit too low for what his role actually is. And it's kind of surprising to me. Like, Cam Payne is $200 cheaper than Reggie Jackson today. Now, I'm not trying to say that they should be comparable. We know Chris Paul is back. Cam Payne is just, there's nothing they were able to do there. He's a terrible play on DK, as far as I'm concerned, at 7,600.
And if you like removing players from a player pool on a one-game slate, you say you want to remove Cam Payne, yeah, I think you're completely fine with that. His new rotation role, a lot of things have to go wrong from an injury and foul trouble. And that's when Cam Payne, I think, gets into relevance of paying off that price tag with the return of Chris Paul. For me, my second favorite Clipper is Ivica Zubac. I even like playing him on captain. I think taking your chances with Ivica Zubac there makes a lot of sense. I hope he stays out of foul trouble, stays on the court, and finds a way just to be plays around high 20s, maybe low 30s minutes. Plays every 8 minute potentially. So, and we saw he was pretty active last game out in the starting role. And I think Tyloo will have to ride him out again just to make sure he stays on the board. He played well. I don't think he played all that terrible, in my opinion, kind of held down the fort. So Ivica Zubac, then for me, it's Reggie Jackson. That's how I feel about that Clippers situation. And similar. But I do prefer Booker to Reggie Jackson in terms of captain ownership. I just think the upside of Booker, we've seen it. So that's why I would have a little bit more Booker in the captain spot than Reggie. That's kind of my captain captain structure laid out. Just a little mixing and matching. I think we just differ on Paul George and Chris Paul there.
Yeah. You mentioned Zubac. I'm a fan today. I have 7 guys that show up in the optimal north of 50% of the time, and he is one of those guys. So it's George, Booker, Reggie Jackson, DeAndre Ayton, Zubac, Paul, and the final guy is Patrick Beverley at 3,200. So I guess my question to you is this: how do you feel about Beverley as a pay down option? Or the bigger question, who is your preferred pay down option on DK today?
So preferred pay down option, it's always really tough to have any sort of preference there in just like paying down, because it gets ugly real fast on one game slates. It's going to be Patrick Beverley. I think if Beverley doesn't land in foul trouble, I believe he picked up some foul trouble in that first half where he missed out on potential minutes to close out the first half. He did. I don't know how many minutes he finished to close out the rotation in the fourth quarter, but
8.5.
Yeah. So I like that for Patrick Beverley. He is talking that smack. Him and Devin Booker got in a shoving match after the eternity of reviews that happened. So I like Patrick Beverley. His price tag is 3,200. I feel confident that he's going to play at least 24 minutes and potentially 30 minutes. So I like that spend down option there. Now, if you don't like Patrick Beverley, you can it'll be contrarian to go to a guy like Terrence Mann at that elevated price tag. Rondo, I think, can get those minutes if you don't think Beverley does. Rondo checks in at $2,800, where you get $400 worth of savings. Things can pan out with those $400 for you. So that backcourt rotation is really interesting. And Kennard being 2K, birthday narrative. Kennard did play well in that fourth quarter. So he is an interesting price tag himself as well.
Yeah, Rondo, very different for me on DraftKings than he is on FanDuel. The gap in salary is different on FanDuel, and the way that the scoring, that is what kind of removed him for me, and that's why I thought he was over-owned. But today on DK at 2,800, I think he's properly owned at the 25% mark. Beverly is just the guy that I have dramatically higher than his current ownership. We have him projected at 31%. I'm well north of 50, and that is about as big of a gap as you're going to find. So I guess what I'm trying to say, play all of the Patrick Beverley if you want to die like I will tonight on Patrick Beverley.
One thing that stood out to me, just to flip the teams over, is in game 2, Devin Booker picked up 2 personal fouls in the first quarter, and Monty Williams didn't pull him. I loved it. I just it was about time like a coach can trust his players not to pick up that third foul, and they needed those minutes from Devin Booker there. So that's something interesting. I don't know if that was the case of the series, them being up 1. He's okay taking that risk there. I don't know how often he does it with front court players like DeAndre Ayton or Mikal Bridges. So that was something interesting to see, something that I was kind of shocked that he actually went out and did it, and it worked out for them.
Among wings in the NBA last year and this year, Devin Booker is in like the 60 to 65th percentile in terms of foul rate. So generally speaking, you're not expecting him to be picking up a lot of problems. So it's good to see Monty Williams just going ahead and leaving him there. I would guess Ayton probably has a little bit shorter of a leash than Devin Booker.
That is correct. I just to round out cheap Clippers.
Sure.
$1,600 Boogie Cousins. Kind of an interesting price tag for sure. Him being $1,600. If you're building many lineups and you land on a few DeMarcus Cousins and you're okay with those lineups just going to waste, yeah, I think taking your chances there. If Ivica Zubac gets in foul trouble, Marcus Morris's knees don't hold up, Cousins going to play some minutes at least. What a terrible positioning on the Jay Crowder inbound pass. That was so bad by DeMarcus Cousins. They could have played anyone else on the court besides him. I think at least they would have been able to position that defensively much better.
It blows my mind how to be wrong and that you have literally only one job to. Oh God, it's embarrassing.
And the thing, what worked out for the Suns there is the Clippers forced the refs for another review when it was clearly off themselves there. And Monty Williams drew up another play in that huddle for that play. So they really burned themselves thinking that their good luck charm is going to work twice on a ref review. So they kind of just tossed that game. They should have won that game.
Shout out to former Suns coach Jay Triano, ran a similar play back in the day with the oop over top of the rim. People think that it is goaltending. It is not from an out of bounds pass.
Yeah, it was the Tyson Chandler play, right?
It was.
Before Tyson Chandler, I believe Dwight Howard had one when he was with Orlando. And I don't remember, and Tim Duncan might have had one in his career, but that play is very, very rare. To happen in these Western Conference Finals, quite spectacular.
I don't know if you saw the angle from basically the opposite side of where the pass came from.
I saw the angles.
Yeah. I mean, Jay Crowder did not have a lot of wiggle room between that ball and the basket. It was real close to the side of the backboard. So kudos to him. Let's talk a little bit about the DraftKings guys that you think might be showing up a little over-owned. Is there anybody that you see right out of the gate that you're thinking wow, I can't believe that guy's getting that much ownership?
Getting that much ownership on this type of slate. Scrolling down, I think potentially, if any campaign ownership, I think you're that's a little too much just because of that price tag and the insertion of Chris Paul. I think I'm slightly under the field on Reggie Jackson, just a tad under, but I'm not too far under the field on Reggie, but that's how I feel about him. But other than that, the field has done a pretty good job. Maybe Mikal Bridges being the other guy. I'm pretty significantly under the field on Mikal Bridges at that $7,400 price tag. There's other guys who are priced around him where I can get significant savings to a guy like Jay Crowder, or I can spend up a little more to Reggie Jackson. It's kind of in a price tag on an island. So it makes it tough for me to really have a lot of interest there. If you go to him, it's going to be contrarian, going to be a very, very contrarian captain option for sure. But Mikal Bridges has an upside. I like his game better for FanDuel scoring than I do DraftKings scoring, but I just think that I do feel confident in his minutes. They're going to need him for his defense. Just the price tag is where I'm a little shying away from. If he was at 6,400, I think it's a lot different of a picture than a $7,400 Mikal Bridges.
I've got two. I'm curious to get your thoughts. 5K Terrence Mann is currently projected for 20% ownership. I'm not entirely sure what his role is going to be moving forward. I have him in for 20 minutes. I'm not confident at all in that number. So I guess I'll start here. How do you feel about Terrence Mann tonight? Because I don't really feel like we've talked about him either.
Yeah. So Terrence Mann, once he moved to the bench, I really did not like that for his fantasy upside at all. Just because the potential of him playing those mid 30s minutes, his new ceiling to me is like mid 20s minutes. That's a huge difference in one game slate. Huge difference. Can Terrence Mann light up the world like he did in game 6 against the Jazz? Sure, but very unlikely that's going to happen again. And 5K Terrence Mann, I'm also under the field on him as well. And he is only $200 cheaper than Ivica Zubac. Zubac in this situation is a far superior play. And will take many lineups for me to go man over Zubac in the situation.
Yeah, I have Zubac in the optimal lineup so much more frequently than Terrence Mann. It's kind of crazy. And they are way closer in ownership than what I believe that it should be. So Terrence Mann, not a guy that I'm getting to. The other guy that I think, in my opinion, is going a little bit overowned, although I guess in a way I can understand why, because there's certainly a path for it. That would be Dario Saric. He's around 16% ownership. I think that number is lower, but he's certainly a guy where he has a very clear path to more minutes and a game narrative that you can follow. If DeAndre Ayton has to play less minutes due to foul trouble, injury, whatever, Dario Saric is going to be the guy that's going to benefit from that. And I can see why the ownership is there. I just don't have it all the way there just yet. I only have Saric playing the backup run to Ayton. I've got Ayton playing 36 minutes. But if Ayton plays 28 minutes, I assume Dario Saric plays 18 to 20.
Yeah, and Sarge, I think also Monty Williams played him a little bit more. He was playing well in the game yesterday due to a good performance. It's tough to pinpoint that, but you can just see how the players out there, and you just see them like maybe it was like there was like an out of bounds play that took longer to happen, and that's somehow those minutes kind of pan out. Another guy similar to Terrence Mann, someone who we saw who got shifted to the bench row, is Nicholas Batum. So. How do you feel about Batum in that $6,800 price tag? Similar to Terrence Mann, not the biggest fan. Batum only played 16 minutes last game. I think I expect him to play a little bit more than that. He's kind of earned those minutes, but like you said, is there something that he's battling through? Potentially. That's the price tag makes it want me to shy away as well.
So that I think is the biggest question mark for this series, because if Marcus Morris were fully healthy, and I believe that Batum has something wrong, and that's why he's not playing as much, it doesn't make a ton of sense to me. If those two guys were more healthy, I would expect them to be going small, to going to a full switching scheme, particularly now against Chris Paul, where Chris Paul is going to try to put Avicii Zubac into pick and roll on a regular basis. The way to stop that from happening is to have Nick Batum and to have Marcus Morris be your 4s and 5s and switch literally everything so that Chris Paul isn't running anybody into it becomes an ISO game. That is what I think they want to do. I'm starting to think that Ty Lue does not have that option because of the health of Marcus Morris, because of the health of Nick Batum. So I'm with you in that I think that he should be playing more minutes. I just don't know if he can.
Yeah, it's always tough to speculate at this point of the season how banged up a player is. And that's the price tag also doesn't do him any favors. That is the peak of Batum's price tag in this situation. It's tough. There's a lot of things for him to needs to go right for him to pay off that price tag. And I just don't see that pathway to success being likely. A similar player to Nicholas Batum is Jay Crowder, who's $1,000 cheaper. Well, I think his minute ceiling is 10 minutes higher than Batum, the way it seems like now. So look, on DraftKings today, especially, you can make a lot of lineups with many thousands of dollars left over. And I can't fault you for that. Some of my lineups are panning out that way. And I just hope the field is eagerly trying to fill up that salary today. That's one way.
Do you pay attention to salary?
Sometimes. If there's something that ridiculous pops up where like, for me, if I'm just like going through it and I was like, that's a little like that probably won't happen unless I'm actively trying to do that. Very rarely I do pay attention to salary. Sometimes like today, like you can, if you're building lineups, you'll be like, whoa, why am I leaving? And then you like look through it. A lot of things that make sense because of the pricing on these players.
Okay. Is there anybody else on DK that you want to touch on that you think we haven't hit on yet?
On DraftKings, guys, who we need to talk about. See, in the captain ownership on DraftKings, I think we nailed like more like the more logical captain options.
Yeah.
DeAndre Ayton, maybe his captain ownership, I think, might be a little elevated with the return of Chris Paul and everything. I just don't think we saw the DeAndre Ayton ceiling game. Excuse me. And I think recency bias ownership might elevate that a little bit. So I think we've touched pretty much on every player that's going to touch the court. Torrey Craig is $3,800. Going to be a very, very contrarian spend down option just because of people priced below him. I projected higher than him. If you fall on Torrey Craig, your lineup is going to be very unique. And Craig could be out there, potentially some sort of foul trouble. And then at that price tag, he's going to be quite low owned. I just think they're a better place, cheaper than him. And we touched on Kennard. I expect those minutes to be similar, maybe a potentially a tad bit higher, but I don't know if he runs out that full fourth quarter rotation again. So that's where I'm a little cautious with Luke Kennard. Outside of that, I think we touched on every single player that's going to touch the floor today.
I hope so. At least if we didn't, that guy's probably going to be like in an optimal lineup or something. Are you interested in signing up at Awesemo.com? You're in luck. You can use the promo code NBA Live Before Lock. That is one gigantic word. You can get an Awesemo Plus weekly pass for $29.95. That's 25% off your first week. You cannot beat it at all. You get everything. Every single thing that we have to offer, you would have access to it. That's as good as it's going to get, if I'm being honest with you. NBA, MLB, NHL, PGA, NASCAR, MMA, tennis, esports, football is coming soon. If you want to see what we've got behind the curtain there, you can do that. We've got so much content for you behind the paywall. I suggest coming in and checking it all out using that promo code that's on the screen right now. 25% off your first week of Awesemo Plus Platinum using the promo code NBA Live Before Lock. One gigantic word. And then finally, one last time, shout out to PrizePicks for being the presenting sponsor of this show. You guys are doing a fantastic job here. 1,240 people, 300 likes, and we just got the Clippers starting lineup. Beverly, Jackson, George, Morris, Zubac. Any surprises there?
No surprises there. And thankfully, no changes. Otherwise, it'll be a frantic change to many lineups. One game slate. So when you get a starting lineup change, that is a huge significant edge if you can mix and match those starting lineups. But yeah, that's nice to see these starting lineups are similar. Yeah, it's good. It's really nice for my Zubac love for today. Hopefully he stays out of foul trouble and rides that out. I believe we have some Slack chat questions maybe we can touch on.
Yeah, I got two more things to hit on first. One, we've got 300 likes and 1,200 viewers. I would like to get to a third likes if we can. So can we run that number north of 400? We're at 314 right now. I don't think it would be crazy if 86 people hit that thumbs up. If you haven't done it already, do so. And then I also have to hit on Darren Unger's super chat. Said, this is a FanDuel question. Reggie Jackson and Zubac or Booker and Johnson?
Reggie Jackson and Zubac or Booker and Johnson. So, it's going to be Reggie and Zubac for me. I think it's Reggie and Zubac, and I don't think it's that close.
Neither do I. I think that relative to salary, I think that Zubac, Jackson, and Booker are all pretty similar. Obviously, Booker being the top guy there. I think Cam Johnson is noticeably a step below Zubac and Jackson. So for me, it is also Zubac and Jackson. Got it.
Yeah. I just don't think we see Cam Johnson play more than 20 minutes unless he gets like super red hot from the field, from the outside. I just think 20 minutes is Cam Johnson's ceiling. Wow.
Right, I'm going to hit you with two player props from Odds Shopper. Go to oddshopper.com if you're looking to bet on any games, because we have all the lines that you can shop for. You don't want to be leaving any money on the table. You want to get the best line you can. We've got it across the board. Track your bets, get alerts when lines move. And that's the baseline for my new video, The Breakfast Menu with Ben Raza. We're giving our picks every single day that we can. Yesterday was oddly the second day and we couldn't do it, but that's neither here nor there. We had one in again today. Devin Booker, is he going over or under 28.5 points today?
Over, under 28.5 points. It is very close for me. I have to take the under.
It's really tight for me too.
Yeah.
especially now with Chris Paul back.
Yeah.
By the way, I have Devin Booker at 28.9. So I'm right on the number, basically. Not a bet that I would want to take at that number.
Yeah, I would shy away. For me, it's gotta be a couple points. I'm trying to learn the where like to draw these lines at sports betting a little better. It's gonna take some time. Their lines are very, very efficient, and just being able to shop those lines will be really, really beneficial going forward.
Final prop before we can get into questions for the rest of this bad boy. Over under 4.5 rebounds for Nick Batum.
Over under Nick Batum rebounds at 4.5. I gotta take the under just because of what happened last game. The team looked better with Nick Batum on the court. They almost won the game. It's just like without Nick Batum. So yeah, I gotta take the under on Nicola Batum.
All righty, let's start hitting on some questions. And you guys almost made it to 400, 380. So we are going to crest that 400 number before we finish this off. We're going to start with Harrison Edmonds' question. Do you feel that Reggie Jackson's projection by Awesemo seems low, considering his past 4 performances without Leonard? Or is the low projection due to Chris Paul's defense? This much I'll tell you. It's not because of Chris Paul's defense.
Yeah, it's not. I wouldn't say it's because of his defense. Maybe there's some reason that I'm not sure why it's coming up that low. How many minutes does Alex have a Reggie in for? Or
I'm pulling that up right now because I have not looked at it.
The data team have
there you go. 37.5 is what I saw last time, but let me see if that's changed. Reggie Jackson, I got 30, just north of 37.5 and 30 fantasy points.
Yeah, maybe the rates are a little different. I have him a bit higher than that just because he's number 2 on the offensive end now. So yeah, if you think he's going to perform that, you could bump up that projection a little bit. I won't fault you for doing that, but yeah, sometimes people have different rates and whatnot. So you can use our projections as a foundational baseline, and especially in a 1-game slate, you can flux around a little bit to see what the lineup can change around. So definitely use that as a foundation, but then you can make your own informed decisions afterwards.
Yeah, I have it slightly higher than that, but it doesn't stand out to me as like something that's wrong. You know, it's just in the same sort of realm as everything else. Let's see what else we've got here. All right, Jets World. Ayton and Beverly or Booker and Kennard. This is the $555 on DK. So we're talking about a relatively small field.
Ayton or Beverly and Booker and Kennard, right?
Correct.
Ayton, Beverly, so Booker, Kennard. So see, I got to go with the Ayton Beverly side. Just the reasoning why, I just think their minutes could be almost 70 minutes, while Booker and Kennard, the ceiling, I honestly think is 62 or 63 minutes combined between the two of them. And sure, it's got to be Ayton and Kennard. I just think Booker being priced a little bit more up with Chris Paul returning doesn't help Booker out as much. And I think Ayton rolls changes a little bit, not as much as it does changes for Booker. And Kennard and Beverly, I like Beverly a bit much more than Kennard.
Yeah, I think Kennard can get played clean off the floor and just not be out there, whereas I don't think the Beverly is going anywhere.
Mm-hmm. Unless his nutcase gets a double T and gets ejected in the first half. Man.
Yeah.
It wouldn't shock me. I mean, Pat Bev is like, I feel like he averages a tech a game in the playoffs, it feels like.
Is it viable to play Patrick Beverly at captain on DraftKings to fit in all the studs?
Now, it's fine. If you think Beverly's going to have a career playoff game, it can definitely happen. And he opens up the world for you. And getting an extra stud in, and if your value captain goes off, you're sitting really pretty. And that's sometimes what it takes. We saw in the Dallas Mavericks series, the dupe lineup was cheap Boban and just ran the show. And I think the other night, maybe Bobby Portis maybe potentially got there for you. And that's taking your chance on a cheap captain. They just need to have an outlier performance. And it can definitely happen on this 1-game situation. And why not Pat Beverly, a starter playing potentially those minutes? Yeah, you're going to have a lot of interest. I believe he's the cheapest starter in terms of salary wise on DraftKings. Yeah. So I have no issues with that type of play.
Per TV with the super chat, can I put Zubac captain on DraftKings? Once again, yes.
Yeah, look, when you're playing these value, cheaper price captain plays, you're expecting them to have a good game, and the rest of the studs to also have a really good game. Now, where you miss out on this is if this guy doesn't play well, and additionally, if Devin Booker goes off for 78 points again, and there's enough value to fit him in the captain spot. That is the opportunity cost when you're playing these showdown contests on DraftKings. And Zubac, like similar to Beverly, not as much, but he does quite a bit for you salary wise.
Yeah. I've got him as a 4% chance of being the optimal captain, which means like 1 out of every 25 days, he's going to be the optimal captain. That seems about right to me.
And we talked about this new game environment, game script for him is very favorable to Zubac. And he just needs to stay out of foul trouble. And I think there's a pathway to 30 plus minutes.
Let's see what else we've got coming in here. We hit on that one. Who is most likely to bust tonight? Ayton, Paul, or Booker?
It's Devin Booker busting 2 games in a row will be tough. But I have to go with Booker just because I really like Chris Paul coming back. But I'm just going to guess your answer for you. It's going to be Chris Paul.
I mean, I think it's easiest for Ayton to bust in the sense that he's a big man. He could pick up fouls and just lose minutes. And that is like not a like super unreasonable stance. But I mean, to me, Chris Paul coming back out of COVID, whether or not it mattered to him, whether he feels it, we have no idea. Even if he's just slightly limited, if he just doesn't have enough gas in the tank, I think that's a reasonable scenario. So I would say Ayton has the easiest path to like just normal game stuff, slowing him down. Chris Paul is just the biggest question mark on the slate. And it's not something that I know or anyone could know.
As ridiculous as it sounds. So Chris Paul was recording TikToks with his children during his quarantine. So I think he'll be just fine.
I can promise you that I didn't know that and that I did not watch Chris Paul's TikToks with his children.
They showed up on.
That's why you're at the top of contests constantly, man. You're doing the extra work. You're doing that extra digging. Like I gotta find out how Chris Paul's feeling today.
Granted, recording TikToks doesn't take as much. Doesn't take as much as effort playing in an Western Conference Finals Game 3. Maybe Jordan can pull up Chris Paul's TikTok in this time. We have to talk about how he's going to perform.
Can we share that on screen? Is that allowed?
Oh, it's not okay.
Jordan's saying no, we can't watch Chris Paul's TikToks. I bet they're really fun to watch. I'm gonna go out on a limb and say they're not. All right, let's see what else we've got coming on into our chat. How do you feel about Batum and Morris on FanDuel? That's from Brian.
Well, your lineup is going to be very, very, very contrarian if you land on both of them on FanDuel. And it's a huge tournament. And can it happen? I'm concerned that the reason why they shifted away from that lineup because it didn't really pan out for them in game 1. So that's why I'm a little hesitant to go there. If you have a high risk tolerance, even then I'll be a little shying away. So I'm not the biggest fan for it. I can't really advocate for doing that. I really didn't fall on. Let me even see if I fell on that combination at all. I didn't fall on that combination once on DraftKings. So it's going to be a very low owned combination regardless. And
yeah, Nick Batum projected for a crisp 0.3% ownership on FanDuel at 11,500.
Yeah, I did not fall on both of them in the same lineup. It's really tough for me to go there. Yeah, I can't do that. I'm sorry.
I'm really surprised to see Marcus Morris's price be $1,000 cheaper than Nick Batum after game 2.
I think that there's like the salary lag algorithm where
we'll probably see it next time.
We'll see it next time. Yeah.
All right.
What else? Drastic drop when Nick Batum becomes like an elite play.
All right. Gerardo with a really interesting point here, better than your TikTok stuff. FYI, the game is in LA. Kendall will probably be in attendance. Booker could have to flex for his girl. Not be, if I were dating Kendall Jenner, I would not be able to play basketball. That's just me. That'd be a problem.
So yeah, I mean Kendall Jenner, whatever she's been doing to Devin Booker on the off days, they're clearly working out for him. So D Book should be just fine. Maybe it's a distraction. You never know.
It would be a distraction to me.
Yeah. It might be a distraction to other players on the team too. But I think Kendall Jenner's been in attendance in the Phoenix Suns arena as well. And Booker's been just fine. So yeah, that's a great narrative to talk about. But is it better than Luke Kennard's birthday narrative? I'm not too sure.
I love Carlos Manzo. I love people like you because the first sentence you say is she's beat. And I'm like, well, you're wrong because she's obviously incredibly attractive. The next sentence is she the all fake one. So she's ugly to you. In fact, you have no idea who she is or what she looks like. That is what an amazing take. I don't know what you look like, but you ugly. And by the way, no, she's the least fake one of everyone in the crew.
Oh wow! I'm Josh is Carjet.
Uh-oh.
Oh, I said your Car Jenner IQ is a lot higher than I would have expected.
I have never watched those shows. I just know that Kendall Jenner happens to be prime real estate, and she was in this season, episode 2 of Dave most recently, and she looked fantastic as per usual. But yeah, Team Kendall for sure. Team Kendall over the rest of the crew. No doubt about it.
I thought so too. So I watched the 72 question series by Vogue, and her 72 question series on Vogue was very, very. I was not a big Kendall Jenner fan after that. She came out very, I don't know, snotty. Is how
I mean, I get it. If I were smoking hot and everyone in my family was a billionaire, I would probably have a lot of time being super grounded. I'm a garbage person in general, and none of those things are true. Joseph Washington, thank you for the super chat. I'm going to assume that you wanted to ask a question. So if you do, I'll try to catch it if you do, but I don't know. Quinn, fan of the program, says, I hope your lady doesn't watch this. One, she absolutely does not. But two, I don't think she would mind that I am quite interested in Kendall Jenner because she knows, like I know, Kendall Jenner would not talk to me in any scenario, even if I were trying to save her life.
It's just chat's just having a field day with this conversation.
Yeah, it's amazing. It's amazing. Look, everybody gets a list when you're married. You know the drill. Kendall's probably not on mine, but she should be, and I wouldn't be mad about it. Look, if my wife happens to bump into Ryan Gosling or Leonardo DiCaprio or something, have at it. That's a story you'll never be able to forget. I would not be mad in the slightest. I would understand completely. And I think she would feel the same if I bumped into Rachel McAdams or Sophia Bush. Either way, we're going to be fine.
Now we know who's on Josh's list.
It's Rachel McAdams, man, for sure. Top of the line.
Top of the line. Okay.
Let's see what other questions we got. We got 6 more minutes. Josh would drink her bath water. Probably not. Probably not. Cleveland 27 in our premium Slack saying he would pick Courtney. You're wrong. You're wrong. We need questions now. Get them in. YouTube chat if you got a question. Premium Slack if you've got a question. Get them
Joe
in.
Washington came back with a question with the $4.99 super chat. Thank you.
Perfect. Joseph Washington, thank you very much. Bridges or Zubac? I have no idea which site that is, which would be important information, but we'll answer it for both. How's that?
Yeah, for me, it's going to be Zubac on both sites.
Yeah, it's Zubac on DraftKings by quite a bit for me, and it's actually Bridges for me on FanDuel.
Okay, I guess I thought Zubac might play a bit more minutes today, so I have Zubac a little bit higher than Bridges, but it's close on FanDuel, and the FanDuel scoring, like I mentioned earlier, works out for Bridges pretty well for him.
Yeah, so like I have Bridges at 54% likelihood of the optimal. I have Zubac at 51. So I'm picking Bridges, but we're talking about basically a coin flip. What else we got coming in?
Do you
premium Slack super quiet? It must be because we ran the purge yesterday.
Was it yesterday?
It was. And shouts to 1-800-EDDIE behind the scenes. He's the guy that runs that, and he made sure to tag me to let me know. There's no better day for me than purge day.
We got a question from Deck 20 in the premium Slack. For FanDuel, do you really need to nail the top 3? Feels like more like the top 2, where the pro spot can be number 4, depending on the salary, 5 and 6. I think if you want to win solo, you have to nail the top 3. Yeah, you just have to. Yeah.
It's one of those situations where, like, yeah, sure, there are always going to be scenarios where you don't have to.
I think game 2 is a really good example where you didn't have to because of the ownership, the flop of Devin Booker. But how often does that really happen? I think we saw the Devin Booker fail game. Can it happen again today? Sure. And that's where you don't need to nail the top 3. But come on, it's a tournament in a 1-game slate. I want to say 9,909 times out of 10,000. Like, you just need to nail the top 3.
We're talking about having a spot with a multiplier and the final 2 spots not having a multiplier. So there's a threshold there where you can get one above the other from a salary perspective, but it's a very, very narrow needle to thread.
Yeah. And we're like, not to say, let's say let's pull up, let's say Torrey Craig has an outlier performance, puts up a pro performance. He might not be in the winning lineup just because people didn't land on that. But to win that solo, you would have needed to have Torrey Craig in the pro spot. And while you have Paul George and Chris Paul, Torrey Craig, Ayton, and and that's how you kind of fall in these solo lineups. It's rare. FanDuel winning solo is very, very, very hard. As is DraftKings nowadays, the people are getting much more sharper. For example, Bobby Portis was 20% owned yesterday. Last year, Bobby Portis would have made maybe 10% owned, maybe. And it just shows that people working on their process.
Jets World, I cannot read that on the stream. Evan Gossett, that is a really weird group of 2 people to choose. Is Cam Johnson a good value or Dario Saric? Charles did not list his site, but yes and no on FanDuel for me.
Yeah, I'll take chances on Cam Johnson, 3-point bonus on DraftKings, but that's about it. It's tough to really take your guy like him. I think some of the Clippers guys are priced better than him. I think we've seen the ceiling of Cam Johnson's minutes. I think they'll drop with another key rotation player being back in the mix. He's going to be sharing more court time with Cam Payne than he was before. So that's how I feel about Cam Johnson.
8:58 and 1 second. So 8:59. You have 1 minute to go before lock. If you do not have your lineups in yet, what in the world are you waiting for? Press submit. We've got 420 likes. I was going to tell you guys to please don't hit the thumbs up again. But now that we're at 421, keep hitting that thumbs up. Let's run that bad boy to 500. If you haven't done it yet, do it now. 999 concurrent viewers, which seems pretty awesome. So I'm pretty happy with that. Rinpack, any final thoughts before we get out of here? We are about at lock.
Pretty much like the teams that I haven't seen make the finals, I'm rooting for 7 games. I love Chris Paul returning back. I hope the Clippers can get a win so we can get more basketball in our lives, but we'll see. But always a ton of fun doing one of these live before locks, and I will catch you soon.
Thank you guys so much for everything. Make sure you're tuning in to the MMA strategy show coming up after this. Not the same link, but stay on the channel. You should already be liking, subscribing, and notification belling so you know when that show goes live. We're back again doing it all one more time tomorrow. It never stops. Strategy show, contenders videos, the breakfast menu, MLB strategy and deeper dive and live before lock and all that good stuff. We have tons and tons of shows. You don't want to miss it. This is the premier place to be for DFS content. I say that without even having to lie. I'm telling you the truth. We have the most subscribers of any daily fantasy sports channel. That's just a fact. We're the best in the biz. You want to be here. Make sure you're subscribing. Good luck tonight. It's 9 p.m. We're out of here. Time to watch some basketball.